And we are here. Do the dance.
Welcome, 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 welcome.
Do the dance. Oh my God, you guys, I'm so excited. Like I'm tired, but I'm I'm focused.
Mhm.
I took 3 pages worth of notes. I got my Here's Chucky shirt on.
Hey.
I'm ready. All right, so we're doing Child's Play. We've
Yes,
been plugging this all week on Facebook.
yes.
So I don't know what can you say about Child's Play as an opener that people already don't know, right? Like it came out in 1998. So I don't think I was even born yet when this came. No, I was. I was only a few months old. It came out November 9th,
88. Yep.
1988. So just backstories written by Don Mancini, produced by David Kirshner, and directed by Tom Holland. And no, not Spider-Man. This is Tom Holland, who also directed Fright Night. So it's a really interesting backstory, and I kind of want to get to that part before we even get into the movie because I feel
Mhm.
like it's so great that you have to pay attention to it. So, where do I even start? So, Don Mancini's dad worked in corporate America,
Mhm.
you know, as an advertising executive, and this was the time if you were born like if you're a Gen Zer, where there was these dolls called My Buddy,
Yep.
and My Buddy looks exactly like Chucky,
Yep.
and my buddy was like, your best friend. You took him everywhere, kind of like a good guy.
Mhm.
And the original idea of the script, Chucky's name was actually Buddy, and the movie was called Blood Buddy.
Yep.
And it was supposed to be where Andy and his doll Buddy made a blood pact, and the doll was acting out all of Andy's impulses. That was the original idea, but between Dave Kirshner and Tom Holland, they tweaked and retooled the script. Even the voodoo aspect came from the director, Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Um, the actual look and sketch of Chucky came from David Kirshner, who then passed it along to special effects master. And you guys probably don't know this, but I'm very into special effects as well as horror. I love that idea of it. But by Kevin Yeager. Kevin Yeager also did a lot of the special effects and animatronics on Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and 3. Like he actually built the big Snake Freddy in part 3. He
Ooh.
did a lot of the makeup. So, I mean, it's a lot of threads in this, right?
Yeah.
So they then changed the name to Batteries Not Included, right? And then they got hit with like a copyright issue because Steven Spielberg was producing the kind of that movie Batteries Not Included.
Yep. Mhm.
So then they settled on Child's Play, and the name stuck, right? Um, and also during this time, Don Mancini, even though he wrote it, didn't have a lot of hands on during the filming because there was a writer strike during filming of this movie.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yes. So it kind of got left up to David Kirshner and Tom Holland. So a lot of things that he had in his original script didn't make it.
Okay.
Which I always want to know, like, what would that movie have been, right? And then we have Andy's mom, Catherine Hicks, who we all know from Seventh Heaven,
Yep.
right? The mom from Seventh Heaven. But interestingly enough, she met and married her husband, who? Kevin Yeager,
Yep.
right? And also, and I have this picture back here for a reason because I want everybody to see the eyes of Chucky. If you look at those eyes real good, they will look familiar because those are the same eyes that they used in Tales from the Crypt on the Crypt Keeper, where Kevin Yeager also
Mm.
did the special effects for the Crypt Keeper.
Okay.
Just so much interesting stuff about this particular movie. But of course, it stars Brad Dourif, Catherine Hicks, and then Chris Sarandon, who was in Tom Holland's Fright Night as Jerry the vampire,
Mhm.
plays Detective Mike.
Yep.
Right. So those are your major players. So yeah, we can just go. It's 87 minutes long, and the budget was 9 to 13 million. It made 44.2 million.
Yep.
So it got really big really fast.
Yep.
And then there's more trivia that goes along into segueing into part 2, but I'll save that for part 2. So we have our opening scene, and we see a man running down the street from the police.
Mhm.
He's trying to get into the getaway car, and the getaway car leaves him. So he's just running down the street. He's being chased by this guy who is Chris Sarandon, Detective Mike, and it's Brad Dourif, and they're exchanging gunfire. And they get to the part where he breaks into this toy store at night. And this is set in Chicago, by the way. And I love the backdrop of Chicago in the winter. It's so, I think it sets up a lot of the grittiness of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets shot, Charles Lee Ray, and he's trying to do something. He's like, I got to get out of his body. I got to find somebody. I got to find somebody. And you have no idea what he's talking about the first time you watch this movie. And he comes across this wall of these dolls, these good guy dolls, and he grabs a doll and he starts saying that now infamous quote unquote voodoo chant, right? And my first question that I wrote down was, why did he choose a doll?
I know. But I mean, I think that at that moment, he was in dire need. His back was against the wall. He's like, we don't find out until later that he knows this voodoo curse or whatever it is, this chanting that transfers his soul. So
right.
I was also wondering why he chose a doll.
Yeah, it's an odd choice, right? Like,
I mean, he's in the alley. He could have chose any one of them bums.
Yeah. It's a very odd choice to say, I'm going to put my soul into this body.
Mm-hmm.
It's just odd.
But I think he just didn't want to die at that moment.
Yeah, probably.
Didn't want to die, So he got this man on his ass. Quick. What can I do? Boom. And to be in an inanimate object like a doll, it just worked for that time, because I'm thinking, like, what if there was another inanimate object like a toaster? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that was why I had the question of, like, there were so many things.
Mm-hmm.
He chose the doll, but he's doing the chant, and then the storm clouds start coming in, the thunder. And my second question was, why all the thunder and lightning from this chant? And Detective Mike sees this through this skylight, and there's an explosion. And how did he survive the explosion?
Yeah.
Like, he just had a couple, like, soot marks on him. But I mean, it's a real explosion. The whole store, like, blows up.
Yep.
But he seemingly transfers his soul into this doll, and at this point, you're just kind of waiting to see if it worked or not. So we then cut to the most adorable child in any horror movie. I watched this movie, and all I kept saying was, oh my God, Andy. Oh, I just want to pinch his cheeks. Like, he is in his good guy pajamas, which I found so ironic that the dolls are called good guys.
Yep. With the little footy pajamas.
He has these footy pajamas on, and it's his birthday. He's 6, and he's watching his show, and he's like, oh, I already saw this one. So he is making his mom breakfast because he knows he's going to get a good guy doll, and he needs to butter her up. Yep. And I had 2, like, visceral reactions to this, right? Was, oh my God, this kid is making breakfast on his birthday for his mom. Like, how sweet. And my second reaction is, oh my God, he's wasting so much food.
The toast was so burnt.
With the big glob of country crust. Like, it's not even butter, it's margarine. He's just a big,
like, Trump.
Right. And he's got the orange juice. He's got the cereal. He put sugar on the cereal. Like, he gonna make it good.
Spilling it the whole way down the hall.
It's so adorable. And, like, he wakes her up and he's like, I made you breakfast. And she's like doing that thing that you do when you're just like, oh, honey, I'm gonna eat this later. And he immediately is like, can I open my presents now? So they go and open his presents, and he sees the box. Like, the box has been chilling. It's wrapped up, and it's an appropriate size. So he knows there's a doll in there. But they open that box, child.
Yeah.
And it's just closed. And Andy is, like, so hurt.
But wait, before he got down the hall to his mom, did you see how his whole world just lit up when they were like, yeah, get a good guy doll? They turned their head. They blinked their eyes when you talk. Yes. He's like, you see his whole life, like, I gotta have it.
And I remember that feeling. And I'm not trying to be funny, y'all, but, like, I still feel that way about my size Barbie. It's like the one toy that I always wanted that I never got because I always wanted a friend.
Yes. Oh
So
my
I
God.
know that feeling, like back when toy commercials actually came on TV,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there were Saturday morning cartoons, there wasn't streaming. So yeah, I remember that feeling of seeing those Barbie commercials, and all, you just get that
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my, I would play with this all day, every day. My whole life would change if I had this one toy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Andy's an only child. And I found it very interesting that Andy's mom was a single mom, because you really didn't see too many white women
Yeah.
in the single mom kind of trope back in
Mm-hmm.
the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? This is like during the Reagan era, right? So we were still on the whole,
Mm-hmm.
2.5 children, two parents era. And
Absolutely.
Andy's mom was a single mom trying to get it out the mud. And we have no idea about Andy's dad to this day. Never
I thought she
mentioned
was a
him.
widower.
I don't remember them ever mentioning what happened to his dad.
Yeah, they never really mentioned it. I always just thought, since they never mentioned it, I thought she was a widower.
Yeah,
So I was like,
it's possible.
dad
But
died. They don't want to put. I don't feel like they would have put it in a light where like his dad was a deadbeat. Or they was divorced. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. The movie was so like progressive. It's
Yeah,
very possible
yeah,
that was just left out of the script. But like, I just love Andy's mom.
yeah.
Andy's mom is such a good. She reminds me of what I was going through before I got with my man.
Yeah.
I had my two kids, and it was just me and them, and I was just trying to make it happen, even though I didn't have it.
Yep.
And
You
in
want to
her,
put a smile on their face.
and she tells him like, "Hey, well, I got you this, and it's the good guy toy box with the tools." And he's like, "I wish I had a good guy to go with it." And she says, "Andy, before I knew about it, they were sold out, and I didn't have enough money saved up to do it." And I know those conversations.
It's hurt. It hurts.
Sometimes you still have to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't have it this month, and you can tell all she wants to do is give him what she feels like he deserves for his birthday.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. And I had this epiphany while watching this, that the main character, quote unquote, is the relationship between Andy and Chucky, right? Like, that's your central focal point.
Yeah.
But to me, this is a movie about Andy's mom.
Yeah.
And the fight that you're willing to put up with for your kids.
Absolutely.
And why Andy's mom is left out of the final girl heroine conversation, I have no idea, because watching the movie again, like I've done so many times, she is a badass through the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, once she puts everything together, she hits the gas pedal, and she's not going to stop till she saves her child.
Right.
And
she even says that. She even says that in the script, like,
yeah,
I need to save my son. Like,
yeah,
I need to save him.
I appreciate that more now as a mother.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really get those type of mom characters in horror movies. They're either the antagonist, or they're the ones that, they're the ones doubting the child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I thought that was refreshing. But we see her go to her job, and she works at a perfume counter, and Maggie, her best friend, shows up. Now, I just found this out like 30 minutes ago, because I was like, I need to do a little bit more research. I just wanted to, dot my I's, cross my T's.
Mm-hmm.
So Maggie, and I've always thought she looked familiar. If you've ever seen the movie Grease, you've never watched Grease. Well, if anybody's ever seen the movie Grease, and I love Grease, I'm a musical slut. There's a character named Marty Maraschino. She's one of the pink ladies. She's like Rizzo's, like it's Rizzo, Frenchie, Marty, and Jan, right before Sandy comes in. And Marty is the girl that is flirting with Vince Fontaine at the sock hop or whatever, and she has all the boyfriends in the army. Marty was like a city girl in the 50s. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Aunt Maggie is Marty Maraschino. I was blown away.
Okay.
that was her, because she sounded familiar, but I could just never figure out who she was.
Yeah.
So, Maggie shows up, and she's like, "Hey, are you still looking for that doll for Annie?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, there's a peddler out back who has one. Let's go." And she's like, "Well, I can't leave my post." She's like, "Do you want this doll or not?" Yeah. That's literally what she says.
Yeah.
They go out back, they get the doll. The doll's $100. They talk him down to 30. Maggie's like, "It's not even worth 10."
Yeah.
And Annie's mom Mrs. Barkley's like, look, just take the $30. It's cool. It's perfect. It's exactly what he wants. And Maggie's like, how do you even know if the damn thing works? Like, everybody needs a best friend like Marty.
Of course. Oh, yeah.
Marty was ride or die. They get back to the counter, and her boss is there being a complete dick. And I really wish they would have killed him in this movie.
I did too. I was like, girl, I wanted him dead.
For every parent out there, male or female, who has kids and they have that boss that gives a fuck about your schedule,
yeah,
this is that guy, because he's like, you're gonna have to cover this woman's shift. And she's like, it's my son's birthday. And he's like, well, I'll give you an hour to go home and do what you have to do, but you have to come back. And he's like, do you like your job here? Because he knows she needs this job.
Yep, you do. Yep. Just being such a dick.
Such a dick. And Maggie's like, don't worry about it. I got Andy. You do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Just being solid, because she didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
So Maggie's there. Andy's playing with Chucky. Chucky's got the hard hat on, cop to the side. Yeah. Maggie's cleaning up the birthday cake and everything, and they're watching the news, and Andy's really talking to Chucky like, this is how you hammer. Do you know what I mean? And it's funny because even when Andy shows his mom how Chucky works, he says, hi, my name is Chucky. There's never another name that he gives him. So you already know that he's in the doll.
Yep.
Right? Because Chucky is a shorthand name for Charles. So they're watching the 9 o'clock news, and this is something that I had never caught before.
Yeah, you see.
Is when, no, not the head turn. Mm-hmm. When you listen to the newscaster and they're talking about Eddie Caputo. Eddie Caputo is the man that was driving the getaway car that left him.
Yep.
And before Charles Lee Ray died, he said he was going to kill Eddie and he was going to kill the cop, Detective Mike. When they're talking about Eddie Caputo on the TV, he is a fugitive, because I always wondered why he was in that abandoned house. Well, Eddie Caputo escaped jail.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I had never caught that part.
Yeah.
So Maggie's like, hey, it's time for bed, brush your teeth. And she like totally like grabs Chucky all rough. And you already know, like, right. And Andy goes and brushes his teeth, and he's being so cute about it. And Maggie's putting up dishes, and the TV pops back on. And she goes in the living room, and Chucky is sitting in the chair watching the news. And Andy's saying Chucky wants to watch the 9 o'clock news.
Yep.
But Andy's in the bathroom brushing his teeth.
Yep.
But of course, she's like, you put him there, you turn the TV on, go to bed. She gets kind of funky with him because she's irritated.
Yeah.
But they lay down, and he's like, why would you do that, Chucky? Because he keeps insisting, I did not do this.
Yeah. He really was like, I didn't do that. And
right.
She just was not trying to hear it, just trying to give him a little life lesson about, tell the truth. And
right. As a auntie figure would, like, you would do that with you've done that with my kids before. You know what I mean? Like, it's a thing. So Andy goes to bed, tells Chucky good night. Maggie is reading a book, and she starts hearing things, which is like, when you live alone at night, it is a thing. So she's hearing stuff. She goes and she's like stalking in the kitchen a little bit, and then the phone rings, scares the shit out of her.
Yep.
And it's Andy's mom. She's like, hey, I'm just checking, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, I just got, a case of the late night willies. I'm okay. Stop bugging me. Everything's fine, girl. Finish your shift pretty much. And she's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So she goes and she sees the sugar is knocked over, and there's little footprints in the sugar, little good guy footprints.
Yep.
She turns around, and you see a POV of something walking around, and it grabs the good guy hammer.
Yep.
Right. And you get to the point where the hammer hits her in the face, and she stumbles and falls out the window, hits a car, and she's gone.
Yeah.
Right. The first kill of the movie. Now, 2 questions that I got brought up. Right. Was that hammer a real hammer?
Yeah, because I was like, how
did it hit her so hard?
Yeah. I thought it was a plastic hammer that was in their little good guy tool.
Now, Courtney brought up an interesting point of this was the 80s, so it may have had some metal parts because that's how toys were made back then.
Yeah.
But the way it hit her, it looked like a real hammer.
Yeah.
So Andy was playing with a real hammer or a hammer with metal, whatever. And 2, the hammer hits Maggie in the face.
Yeah.
Chucky is a doll. How did the hammer get so high?
Yeah. That too. We don't see the POV of him climbing up on anything.
Right. It didn't hit her on the knee. It didn't do any of that. Now, there is a counter to that, because when you get to the whole detective scene, there are footprints on the counter, but you don't know if that happened before or after.
Right.
But the hammer hits her dead in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wondered, like, was he on a chair or something? Or like, did he just like chuck that bitch? Like,
Yeah.
because it hit her in the face, and Chucky's
It
like,
could. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's so disturbing. The fall is so, it's in slow motion and it's so disturbing. And you see the thud on the top of the van. Like, it's just a nightmare. And Andy's mom gets off the bus. So we know she ain't got no car.
Mm-hmm.
She gets off the bus. It's late at night. She comes to her house and it's just surrounded by police. And I could not imagine the panic
Yeah.
of coming home from work and
Right.
your house is full of police and you have no idea what happened.
Mm-hmm.
She rushes in. She sees Andy. She hugs Andy. Detective Mike is talking to Andy, which, first of all, why are you even talking to a minor?
Exactly.
Okay, whatever. And she's asking what's happening. And he says, Aunt Maggie had an accident. It's just so sad to hear a child say.
Yeah.
And Detective Mike is such an asshole. Like, it took me most of the movie to come around to him, because I felt like he was such a dick in this movie.
Yeah, he was.
He was so antagonizing to her. Like, she didn't just lose her best friend. He's questioning her son. And she even has that point in the kitchen where she's like, my best friend just died and my 6-year-old son is probably traumatized. Can you leave?
Mm-hmm.
And it's his birthday.
Yeah.
Right. So they're about to pack everything up. He tells everybody, okay, let's get out. We got enough evidence. Let's leave. And he sees Andy come back in, because kids don't never listen until you stay put. And he comes back in and he asks him what's on his feet. And he's like, good guy, PJ sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
So he's so cute. And he's like, well, let me see. And he's like, oh, there's a little hammer and a little gun and a little hat, because it matches the prints on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy's mom's like, get out. We're done. We're done here. Get the hell out of my house.
Yeah.
She sends Andy back to his room again. Andy puts Chucky in the chair. Now, this is where I was like, okay, this is not no ordinary child, because he looks at Chucky's feet and he sees the sugar.
He does. Yep.
And what does any good child do? He's like, hey, I know who did it.
Yep.
He runs out. I know who did this. And they're like, who? And he's like, it's Chucky.
Yep.
And she's like, okay, this is enough. Go to bed.
That's it, right?
I've had enough. She tries to talk to him. I'm sorry if y'all hear screaming, y'all. Like, Sean is having a ball in the other room before bedtime. But she tries to get him to go to bed. And she's like, hey, you can't keep making up stuff.
Yeah.
And it's this really realistic but special moment they have in that scene that I understand now as an adult, because she starts to get very agitated as he keeps saying that Chucky did it. Right. Chucky did it. And she snaps at him. And he's like, are you yelling at me because of what happened to Aunt Maggie? And she breaks down and she goes, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, I'll stop making up stuff. And the fact that she recognized that her aggression and her anger had nothing to do with her child, but just the stress of the circumstance.
Absolutely.
And the fact that he just wants, as usual, as you saw from the breakfast scene, we have set up that Andy just wants his mom to be happy. Yep. That he knows he's telling the truth. But in that moment, he needed her to calm down. So he just said, I'll just stop making it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the dynamic of their relationship is they care for each other, even at 6 years old.
Yep.
He knows he needs to care for his mom.
Yep.
Right. And she knows that she needs to not take things out on him. I thought that was a very beautiful little moment to show the dynamic of her and her child.
And I will say that the chemistry between them was very, it seemed very authentic.
Oh yeah, like, that definitely seems like his mom.
We gotta commend this young man, like this little boy, a child actor, for doing just an amazing job with playing this role.
Yeah,
because he definitely made it seem authentic, and he was so sweet. So
just the sweetest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day comes and she walks Andy to school. And she's like, hey, are you okay? Are you sure you didn't have any bad dreams about Aunt Maggie? And he's like, no, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. And he has Chucky with him. Now, let me back up for a second. So she leaves and closes the door. And it seemed like for a moment she hesitated. and was kind of like, maybe this thing is alive.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that when she closes the door to put him to bed for final time, put him to bed, she
was
stopped
thinking.
for a second.
She was thinking. Mm-hmm.
Like her wheels were kind of turning because, and this is why, because Andy says, well, Chucky said Aunt Maggie was a bitch and she deserved what she got.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at Courtney and I said, now, as a parent, I may not believe this doll is alive, but I know my son, and I know my son wasn't cursing before he got the doll.
Yeah.
And I feel like she probably had the same moment because she closed that door and she kind of was like,
Yep.
And then she walked it off. Right. And then the next day she takes him to school, asks him, is he okay? And he walks in. And I had a whole moment where I was pissed off and I kept rewinding it. Because as Andy's walking into the building, there's this overgrown child who looks like he's at least 18 with a good guy doll too.
Yeah, everybody had one.
But this kid looked at least like 14. I was like, there's no way this child is in elementary school.
Right.
Carrying this big ass doll, but whatever. So Andy doesn't go into the school. He waits until everybody leaves and he walks out of the school with Chucky, and they hop on the train, which speaks to Andy's character. And Courtney was like, well, how would it look? Like, why wouldn't anybody know this little boy on the train? I was like, well, you got to think about the times. And I was like, if Andy is the kid of a single parent with no car, he knows how to use public transportation.
Yeah, you have to.
Right. Yep. He probably has a little change because you needed payphones back then.
Yep.
Or his lunch money, whatever. Yep. But either way, he's on that train with Chucky. And he's leaning over and Chucky's talking to him, but you don't see Chucky talk to him.
Yeah. Chucky's definitely in his ear.
Right? Like most of this movie, especially up at this point, you kind of feel like maybe something's wrong with Andy because you never see the doll do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They get off the train and they go towards this abandoned house, and he puts Chucky in a chair outside and he goes, well, you stay right here. I have to tinkle.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see this POV of something small running up to the house. And I remember the first time I really watched this, I thought it was Andy. Like, as a child, I thought it was Andy because you'd never see Andy or Chucky. You just see the POV shot.
Right. And
you find that Eddie Caputo is in this abandoned building, right? Freezing his ass off in a Chicago winter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he stalks around the house. Eddie gets up. He's shooting his gun, and Chucky finds the stove and turns the gas on. Now, of course, another question. How does Chucky know that the gas is on? And if the place is abandoned, why is the gas on?
Right. How?
Right. Like, or is it just a crack house? Like, I don't know, but
yeah. Could be that.
But he turns the Chicago. Yeah. He turns the gas on, blows out the pilot, and Eddie Caputo's just shooting around. And he's outside looking for Chucky.
Yep.
And he shoots that one final time. Well, no, Eddie Caputo sees Andy outside.
Yeah.
Walking around.
Yep. He coming by the window. He looking out the window at him.
Right. And he's looking for Chucky. Yep. So he's calling him. So he shoots that final time because he hears something in the kitchen and the house blows up. How does Andy survive that explosion being in that proximity to that house? Because that house blew up to smithereens.
Yeah. And
how is Chucky unscathed as well?
Yeah.
How did Andy even find Chucky? Because the whole house fell apart.
Yep.
But of course, Andy's mom shows up to the police station because her child is found at a crime scene.
Yep.
Right. And he's in there talking to the other detective. That's with Detective Mike. And Andy's just telling him, like, it's Chucky. Like, what else do you want? It's Chucky. And she walks in and she's like, you are going to have to tell these people what's going on or they're going to take you away from me.
Yeah.
And when Andy hears that, he goes off on Chucky and he starts whooping Chucky's ass.
As a 6-year-old can do.
As a 6-year-old. He got Chucky up by the collar and he's like, you better tell them. Why did you lie to me?
Why did you lie to me?
Right? And he looks psychotic because he's beating up a doll and saying, why did you lie to me? And there is a psychiatrist listening.
Mm-hmm.
And she's hugging her son, and the psychiatrist comes over the intercom and he's like, hey, I think he should stay here with us for a couple of days.
Yep.
So Detective Mike is like, I'm really sorry about this. I didn't want to see this happen either. And she's lost. She goes home. She's got Chucky with her. She is just distraught, as a mother would be.
Yeah.
And mind you, this is a 24-hour period. Maggie just died the night before. Like, Maggie just died the night before. And this is happening the next day. So she's going through it. She lost her best friend and her son in 24 hours. So he puts Chucky down, and she's like kind of trying to talk to him, but not really, just because she's like lost it at this point. She's sleep deprived. Like she's just like whatever. Yeah. And she laughs at herself. She gets up, she goes in the kitchen, she sees the box, she reads the box, and we get the most infamous scare. This to me is the scariest scene in the movie, is when she lifts up that box and it says batteries included.
And the batteries drop out,
and they drop and they hit the floor, and you get that score.
That now, was this before or after she went looking for the guy that sold her?
This is before. This is when she finds out that something's wrong with the doll.
Yeah.
Right. So the batteries fall out, and then she's scared. Now she's on high alert, which is why I said I think she already felt a kind of way the night before, because now it's like all of her suspicions are confirmed.
Yep.
She goes over to the doll. She lifts up that shirt real slow, and you get that really like this tension building of her trying to open the latch real slow, and there's no batteries in it, and the head spins around, and it's that sinister, "Hi, I'm Chucky, want to play?" It's so sinister. It's different from how it's been said throughout the whole movie.
Yep. The music makes it so much better. The score, the score on this movie takes it up a notch.
And she drops the doll, and the doll rolls under the couch. Now, why she didn't just flip the couch over, I don't know. But she bends down. She lifts up the bottom of the couch, and the doll is still there. The doll doesn't even move. It's just laying there with its head turned back around. She slowly grabs the doll out. And this is when I said that she turned into a badass heroine, because she was like, talk to me. You're going to talk to me. Chucky's not saying shit. And she goes, oh, okay. And she turns that fireplace on, and she goes, you talk to me, damn it, or I'm going to throw you into this fire. Now, if that ain't some mom shit,
man,
you're going to answer me, because now I know you're alive. Yeah. You know that I know, and I know you're alive. So you're going to
talk and talking with no batteries.
Right, for days. And
terrifying.
As soon as she says, throw you, when she tells him she's going to throw him in the fire, his whole facial structure becomes humanized. And you get that, fuck you, you filthy slut, you dirty whore, you teach you to fuck me. And he is like gnawing at her. Yeah. And I was like, this is another question I have never asked myself, because I just enjoy this movie so much, is when he transferred his soul into the doll, right? Follow me. Does he transfer his strength as well? Because this is still a doll with fabric arms.
I definitely thought he had the strength of a man,
because the doll had like those woody fabric arms and just plastic hands at this point. We didn't get the actual plastic arms to like part 2, 3. So it's just stuffing at this point. But they act like they can't get this doll off of them. And at this point, all he can do is gnaw. He doesn't even have a knife yet. He's literally just biting people. But he does. He bites her on the forearm. She drops him, and he gets up and runs out the house, which is so interesting. And I found it very interesting that they had a real person in the costume for some of those running parts, which to this day, these special effects hold up very well.
The whole cinematography holds up as well, too, because even the production quality is still like, you can tell it's an older movie, but you still can't tell how old the movie is. Like the scenes aren't having those little blotchy little spots and everything.
Just the cut, the edits between animatronic Chucky and walking Chucky are just seamless.
Yeah.
So
you can tell it's no like stop action type of shit. Like it's It looks very sophisticated. And this is for 1988. This was a big deal back then. That's what I think. That's where most of the budget probably went to in production. That was most of their production.
I mean, there had been animatronics before, but this was the movie that made animatronics big to me. After what people saw that they could do with Chucky, it was like the sky's the limit with animatronics.
Yep.
So Andy's mom is like, "Fuck this." She goes out. And she's not only looking for Chucky, she ends up going to find Detective Mike because she can't find Chucky. So the detective's kind of like, what the hell is wrong with you? And she's just like, the doll is real. My son wasn't lying. You have to tell me what's going on. Because Andy tells her that his name is Charles Lee Ray.
Yep.
And she doesn't know what that means at the time. But she's questioning Detective Mike. Detective Mike doesn't believe her. And she's like, he got up. She's like, the thing's been walking and talking with no batteries. He bit me. He got up and walked away. He thinks she's loony. And now he's like, okay, now I see where your son gets it from. So he puts her in the car. He drives her home. And no, correction. She leaves. And he's like, where are you going? She's like, I'm going to the back of my job to find the peddler that sold me this doll so he can tell me where he got it from. Right. And maybe that'll give me some clues. And he's like, you don't want to go over there that time of night. And my thought is, bro, she catches the bus after hours in Chicago. I think she's okay.
But here's my thing. She still went there by herself. And when things took a turn, as they do, because you're dealing with,
absolutely,
she don't have no kind of pepper spray, nothing. Wow. Like, she's overpowered by this man in this alley with all these strange people. Like,
but I think she's running off of pure adrenaline at this point. You don't believe what you just saw. You know your son is in trouble. You haven't slept. Because I can't imagine she slept after her friend died in her house. Like, I think she's running off of pure mom adrenaline. She's like, I don't care. I'm going to get the job done because that's my job. But yeah, she finds him and she's asking him about it. And she's like, look, I don't have much money, but I'll pay you to tell me what you know. And he tries to like attack her. And luckily for her, Detective Mike followed her because, I mean, she's the lead suspect, one of the lead suspects in this case. So he's not going to let anything happen to her. I don't think he did it because he was a good Samaritan. I think he did it because he wasn't going to lose one of his suspects. Right. Because he's thinking something's wrong with her too. So Detective Mike whoops this man's ass that sold her the doll. He's like, you tell me where you got it from. And he finally says, well, I got it from this burnt out toy store, Wabash, which, I mean, you know, Chicago, you know, Wabash is a really big street. So he lets him go. But he has this look on his face that says he knows something. And she's just like, what are you not telling me?
Yeah. He's like, how do you know? How like that same building? Like he's connecting the dots too in his head.
And he's like, that building is completely burned down. And, you know, I was there when it happened. And she starts asking him about, well, what do you know about Charles Lee Ray? And he's like, he's dead. He has nothing to do with this. And she's like, well, how do you know? And he's like, I was the man that killed him. That's how I know. So she gets in the car and then she has her aha moment. And she's like, okay, so now I at least know. No, correction. They get to the house, her house, and he's like, okay, get out. And she's just like, look, if you're not going to do anything about it, that's fine. Because at least I got what I needed. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I found out that Chucky's Charles Lee Ray. And she's like, and he killed Eddie Caputo. So I know what's going on now.
Right.
She tells him that he needs to look into it. He refuses to even entertain the conversation to the point where he gets out of his car, walks around, opens the door, and pulls her out onto the street. Right? But she says something that really gets to him because she's like, well, where did he live? And he tells her, but not really. Like, he's like, well, I know where he lives, blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't really tell her at that moment.
Right.
No, correction. He does tell her where he lived. And he's like, but the place is completely abandoned. There's nothing there. She's like, that's all I need to know. And she tells him before he drives off, she's like, you said you don't like loose ends. And I'm a loose end. You are not going to be able to move on till you at least check into his file.
Yeah.
Right. I love how she smacks the car as it drives away. She's like, damn it. So what does he do? He goes to the police station. He pulls Charles Lee Ray's file. Right. He's walking out the building. Now, this is the part that I feel like was unnecessary, but fun at the same time. He gets in the car. He's driving off. He's about to light a cigarette. And Chucky uses the jumper cables to start choking him.
Oh, yeah.
And this man does not pull over at all. Like, he just keeps trying to drive his car.
Stop. He don't try to slam on the brakes. Nothing.
Right. So much so. Then Chucky has a butcher knife. And he starts stabbing through the seats and like pokes him in the ass and almost chops his balls off. And he's trying to brake, but he's crashing and shit. And he tries to brake at this point.
Yeah.
But Chucky's like, nah, B. And he like pushes the gas pedal with his hands. And at this point, it's like, you still not like just nothing. You're not going to unbuckle your seatbelt and just roll out and take your chances, nothing. But he crashes the car. It flips upside down. and Chucky's out the car, and Detective Mike is trying to shoot Chucky, but Chucky's running around the car, which I think is a fabulous shot of him scurrying around the car and trying to poke him. And he does this like jump scare where he's going to come at him, but Detective Mike shoots him in the shoulder. He goes flying, and then he gets up and he disappears. Now, was Chucky in the car the whole time him and her were talking?
I think so.
Like, was he in the car the whole time, or does he get in the car while he's at the police station?
Right.
I would like to think he was in the car the whole time, just eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Because one thing Chucky is nosy as fuck. Like, he'll hustle anything.
Oh, yeah.
But the next day, Mrs. Barkley goes to Charles Lee Ray's old apartment, and she pays the landlord. Like, she ain't got no money, but she just like, take it. I don't care. I need to find out what I need to find out.
Yeah.
And you see this big mural of this like black voodoo priest and him bowing at it. And it has like, you know, thank you, Damballa, for giving new life, and just all of this voodoo shit and dolls and candles. And Detective Mike comes out the shadows, creepy as fuck. And he's like, yeah, I looked into it. His friends called him Chucky, and that guy on the wall was like his mentor. Right. And they're like, okay, we need to go get to him and find out what's going on before Chucky does. Well, Chucky didn't already got to him.
Yep. Too late.
Too late. This man's making coffee, going about his business, and Chucky's in the window. And Chucky starts questioning him. And this is when we start getting into the rules. Right. So this guy's name is John. He's a voodoo priest, and he taught Charles how to do voodoo in a case of emergency. They were friends. And he's like, hey, I got burned, you know, with the cigarette lighter in the car. He looks more human. His hairline's receding. He's got pores. He doesn't like a doll anymore at this point.
His little teeth is like yellow and shit. Like,
yeah. His eyes are starting to sink in. It's real human. And he says, hey, I got shot last night, and you know what? It hurt. What's going on? And John is like, first of all, scared to death. He's terrified of this doll. And he's like, you've been in that body too long. And if you don't get out of it, you're going to be stuck there. And he calls him an abomination, which I thought was interesting because you taught him the shit, but whatever. And he's like, well, how do I get out of this body? And he goes, you have to transfer your soul into the first person you revealed yourself to. Well, correction. He doesn't want to tell him how to do this, but Charles, being Charles, was like, all right, cool. So he pulls out a voodoo doll.
Yes.
He's like, it's your own personal mojo, Doc. And he has that knife, which I didn't realize that he got that knife from John's apartment. The infamous knife with the drawing on it.
Yeah.
He got it from his apartment, because I'd always wonder where he got it from. But he like breaks his legs and his arms. And then he's like, all right, I'll tell you, you have to transfer your soul into the first person you revealed yourself to. And Chucky does that fucking laugh. And he's like, I'm going to be 6 years old again.
Yep. There you go.
Right. So, you know, now that the clock is racing on Andy's ass.
Yeah.
And he stabs John. John's dying on the floor. When Detective Mike and Mrs. Barkley get there, he's dying. And she asks him, like, what do we do? And he tells them on his last dying breath, you have to shoot him in the heart.
Yeah.
The only way to stop him. So that's your little tiny bit of your first inclination of rules in the series. Right. So Andy is in this like children's psychiatric facility. How Chucky found him, we don't know. Charles E. Ray is a resourceful son of a bitch, in my opinion.
He is. This is before Google. Like, this is a time where he's like,
this is before Ask Jeeves, the internet, anything.
Oh yeah.
But Andy's looking out the window and he sees Chucky climbing up the goddamn stairs. And baby, when I tell you this little boy was acting like the rent was due that day, like he had to keep his parents' lights on because he's like, he's coming to kill me.
Oh,
he's coming to kill. And the way he hugs his knees and cries. And then is like, I gotta think of a plan. Right. So Chucky sneaks in. Chucky gets the keys to Andy's room. Undetected. Right. He opens the door, but Andy got them pillows under the blanket and hid behind that door. And as soon as Chucky walked in, he walked right out.
Yep.
But mind you, he's still 6, so he went to go hide like a child would, and he goes to a different room and he hides under this like gurney.
Mm-hmm.
Chucky's in there though, and Chucky's trying to get his ass, and they knock over a tray. So what is it? Andy grabs a scalpel. Andy said, "Not today,
Right.
not today. You're gonna get cut up today."
Yeah.
At 6 years old, Chucky would have got me. I mean, I had common sense at 6. I think just being like a project baby give you a sense of like spidey sense, but Chucky would have probably got me because Andy was like way smarter than I was at 6 years old.
Yeah, I wasn't that street smart.
Yeah, like I said, I was to an extent, but like Andy was really like dodging them slices and dices.
Yeah.
But then the doctor comes in and he's trying to sedate Andy. He gets the scalpel out of his hand. And I mean, Andy was not letting that scalpel go. And he had to pry it out of his hand. He's kicking and he's screaming. He's like, no, he's in here. And he's trying to stick him with this needle to sedate him. And Chucky comes up with the scalpel and cuts him in that leg.
Yeah.
And he falls to the ground and he puts that electrolysis helmet on him and burns his ass to death. That's probably one of the weakest special effects is the burn with the little helmet, but it's still good. It's still good. Little alka-seltzer tab never hurt nobody.
It's actually sad because it's like, damn, y'all doing this to these kids?
Well, you know, that was the time when they were doing all that electrolysis.
It was. It's like, oh my gosh, how barbaric is that?
Yeah, like we have to remember that modern medicine really ain't that modern because they were doing this and probably still doing this to some extent.
Yeah.
But Andy leaves. And Detective Mike and Andy's mom are talking in the car, and she's like, I always told him if something happens to go home.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing. Andy's going home. He gets home. He goes in his room. He's looking for a weapon. My boy got a bat.
Yeah, he was on it.
He got a baseball bat. It sat in the corner of the closet. Chucky's already on his way, though. He's in the elevator. And I just don't understand why the old people didn't die.
Yeah.
In the elevator, right?
Yeah.
And I also wonder why Chucky knew he was going home. But I guess if you think kid logic, they probably like where else would they go?
But wait, remember, we passed the funny part to another funny moment of just Chucky being Chucky, and he walked past that lady's room. Well, not the lady's room, but he walked past that lady, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh, ugly dog." He's like, "You."
Yeah, in the elevator. It's the old couple. That's why I said they should have died. The old couple should have died because like they were like looking at him and she gets in the elevator and she's like, oh, ugly dog. And he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
On the way up. I'm like, you could have just stabbed him in the elevator real quick.
Oh, that was comedy gold. That was comedy gold.
Now Andy starts walking around with his bat. He gonna protect the house. Now this blows me every time and I don't understand it. And if you have insight on it, please help me. Because this is the only part of the movie that I feel like falls apart for me. Okay, we know Andy's mom has a fireplace.
Yeah.
Right. How do you have a fireplace in a brownstone? Right? Okay. And how did Chucky get in the fireplace to get in the apartment? The whole ending climax does not work if Chucky doesn't come down that fireplace.
Mm-hmm. But how did he get in the fireplace? Because their apartment is like, how many floors up?
Right. So is she on the top of the floor and she's like, the top floor only has a fireplace? Like he rolled the elevator all the way up, went up to the roof, jumped in the fire. Because I say it doesn't make sense. Like, do brownstones have fireplaces? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I'm confused now.
That's a high-rise brick apartment, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just to throw that out there. Something I finally noticed as an adult. But
right.
Chucky comes down the fireplace and Andy's terrified. And he knocks Andy out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. With the batter up, knocks him out. I mean, he's 6. And Detective Mike and Andy's mom are on their way up. And he starts doing the chant. And the clouds start rolling in, and you just think, oh, God, this is it for Andy. He finally got him. They break down the door. Now, why did they break down the door if she has a key?
Right.
Now, mind you, I understand that they had like that little like bench blocking the door because Andy was trying to keep Chucky out, but like still, like, it wasn't that heavy if a 6-year-old can move it.
Yeah.
Like she didn't use her key, whatever. Okay. So they get in the apartment. They're getting Chucky. She's getting Andy, right? And Chucky slices Detective Mike with the knife. He
Yeah.
goes down.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sequence is pretty much them just getting chased by Chucky. Detective Mike gets knocked out in the bedroom.
Yep.
And this is where I said Andy's mom really shines because she protects her son at all costs,
Yep.
even though they're running from a doll. But she does get him in the fireplace, and you get that scene, that infamous line, well, Andy, he's struggling. And she knocks the matches over, and Andy grabs that match.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, but Andy, we're friends to the end. And he's like, this is the end, friend. And he lights that match and he tosses it on Chucky. And Chucky starts hollering and screaming. And he breaks out. And you get that amazing scene of the stunt person running around on fire.
Yeah.
Amazing sequence. And he finally like falls on the carpet and is just like on fire. And they're like, whoo, relieved. They go check on Detective Mike. Now, this is where I was like, okay, Andy's mom, you really aren't thinking, because she sends the boy back out to get a first aid kit.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you stay here. I'll go get it.
Right? Like, come on.
The doll is still out there, but.
And they didn't shoot him in the heart.
No. So he gets this first aid kit and he turns around, and the pure shock on his face when the doll is gone, just smoking ash on the ground, the doll is gone. And he drops that first aid kit and starts hyperventilating. And he tries to call for his mom, but he can't because his voice is so light. He's like, Mommy.
Yep.
Mom. Like he cannot yell because he's so terrified. And you see Chucky stalking, burnt up, towering over him, coming towards him. And he's trying to scream. And he finally gets that scream out. Which I'm like, boy, just scream. And he finally screams at the top of his lungs and he runs in the bedroom and she's holding the door closed. And then Chucky runs around to the bathroom door and she has to hold that one closed. And you get those knife holes through the door. Right. And they're going to have to battle him one more time. And she has Andy behind her in the hallway, which I think is like one of the most iconic shots. Like if I was to ever get a poster of this movie, it would be the shot of Andy standing behind his mom while his mom is holding a gun. That's just such a beautiful shot to me.
It is. It really is.
It shows that just, like I said, it's her story. She's the badass. She's the Laurie Strode. She is in front. And she shoots him and she shoots his arm off. She shoots his leg off. She shoots his head off.
Yep.
Right? And then she shoots him in the back and like the body's like doing the worm.
Yep.
And she shoots him in the back and they're like, okay, cool, we're done. They go back to check on Detective Mike. And the other detective shows up. And he's like, look, it's the doll. The kid wasn't lying. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's the doll's body is like all over the hallway. And he's like, don't you touch it. And the first thing this asshole does.
Yep. What he do?
What do you do? Go and pick the head up and brings it in and starts talking shit like, this is not real. Do you see this? This is not real. And I love this part when Chucky is still commanding his body and the body busts through the vent and grabs the other detective by the throat.
Yep.
And he's just like, kill him, kill them all, rip his throat out, blah, 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 blah. And Detective Mike like finally shoots him in the heart. And you see the blood splatter and the little doll just like falls over.
Yeah.
And then you go through that weird like voice transition of Chucky talking for the last time.
Yeah.
And then Chucky finally dies.
Yeah. Whew. Such a good ending.
Yes.
Like because with most horror movies, they follow the same routine with like there has to be a fight at the end. There has to be a fight. This was a very, very, very good ending. I still feel like Child's Play had one of the best reveals.
Yes.
It's like that scene of him coming alive after the batteries is one of the best reveals in horror history.
I love the fact that at the end where Detective Mike said, no, Andy's mom says, nobody's going to who's going to believe us?
Yep.
And the other detective goes, yeah, and who's going to believe me? right?
They gonna laugh him about the police station.
And they get that scene, that ending shot of the door closing, but you see Andy's face looking back like he just doesn't feel like he's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that last shot is just symbolizing the fact that Andy will never be the same again. Because the way he looks over his shoulder is so creepy to see that type of face from a kid.
Oh yeah. And that's it actually is foreshadowing too, because that's great foreshadowing of like you're going to be looking over your back
forever
for the rest of your life. Yep.
And then you get that beautiful score that is one of the best scores in the credits of horror movie history. I even love when 3 6 Mafia sampled that score.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so iconic. Like it's such a great score.
It is.
But I feel like this movie was a blueprint on child acting, mother heroines, and jump scares. Some of the best jump scares in the business.
Yep. And this also, I must say, this also set the tone. It was a trailblazer for doll movies.
Yes.
Because how many low budget movies did we get after that?
You got Dolly Dearest, and Dolls and
Demonic Toys.
Yeah, like the doll movie thing.
Pinocchio's Revenge. Like we had. I mean, there was just an explosion. There was an explosion of.
But I just feel like there's only like, to me, there's only like 3 child actors that I ever will feel like hit that the legendariness of horror movies, and that is the little boy from Pet Sematary, right, little Gage, and then you had the little boy from Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street, the new Nightmare.
Oh yeah,
that played Nancy's son, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Alex Vincent's Andy Barclay. Those are the only 3 horror child actors I feel like should even be in the conversation.
Yeah.
They brought it every time. But no, wait a minute. Yeah, the little boy that played Gage is the little boy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Who am I thinking about? Oh, I'm thinking about the little boy from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child.
Oh, okay.
Brings it every time too.
Dylan, wasn't his name Dylan or something?
Dylan is in New Nightmare.
The New Nightmare. Okay. Yep. Yeah. That's what I was thinking about, because
but that's the same kid from Pet Cemetery. So I mean, he
is the creepy kid.
Yeah, but the little boy in Part 5, The Dream Child, his name was Jacob. He's this totally different kid. But those 3 always were like the trendsetters for me. But Alex Vincent, to this day, even because I've actually gotten a chance to at least watch the first 2 episodes of the Chucky series since we last talked, and even as an adult, he's bringing it.
He is. He embodies Andy Barclay so well, and to even. I had to look him up. I was like, is that the same Andy?
Yeah, it is. I mean, he looks the same, just with a beard. That's the funny part.
Yes. Like,
exact same.
I'm like, man, that's great, because, most child actors might not want to revisit that. Like, no, I'm an adult, but he showed up.
But I just feel like that speaks more to Don Mancini, because like he's created this family around this franchise. I mean, this is the only franchise, to my knowledge, there might be more, that has a real continuity over almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Like a legitimate continuity from start to finish. Like you can go through all 8 movies and they all connect. Except for the remakes. So 7 movies.
Yeah, I'm about to say except, because this, I feel like it's this, this franchise has become something so big because it spawned 6-7 more sequels. It was a reboot, and it's a television series that's going to be
and the TV show is still carrying the continuity from the original because Andy's in it.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So to me, I just feel like the respect needs to be paid, not because it's just a great movie, but because they've established such a great franchise in art of storytelling, and to have a queer writer and director being a forefront in horror, that is legendary.
Yeah. And this is not even like the movies. Well, the first few movies did kind of come back to back, but there was a long hiatus.
Oh yeah.
Before we got to Bride of Chucky, because that was like what, 8 years?
Yeah.
Like 7-8 years later. So I'm like, And for them to pick up 8 years later, and the character is like Chucky as a character is still so popular. Like,
but I feel like that's a testament to like fighting for your actors, right? Like Don Mancini understands that Brad Dourif was the franchise, and now Jennifer Tilly as well, and Alex Vincent.
Yep.
So, and Kyle is in the series too.
Yep.
Right, from part 2. So he's making sure that they're getting paid what they're worth. Like this man literally is employing generations. Like Brad Dourif's daughter is now a character, right? And one of the special effects artists, his daughter is now doing special effects on the show. So he's literally making sure he's paying this family that he's created, because he has the same producers, same special effects people, same lighting people. Like he uses the same people every time. He's created an environment where he trusts them, they trust him, and they can keep creating art.
Yep. And it's also very beautiful. It's also very beautiful that it's beautiful to see Brad Dourif's daughter. Like like we're seeing him pass the torch to his daughter,
and she's just as good.
And she's just as creepy.
When she when she flips that switch, she's just as good as her dad. She studied her dad. She's even said that she used to be on the set as a child.
Yep.
Right. So I have to give flowers to Don Mancini for not being greedy.
Yeah.
Not being overwhelmed by celebrity and infamy to make sure that his people are taken care of, because there would be no franchise without those people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, that's the only way we've got continuity.
Brad Dourif is a legend. That man's acting credits, like he's in one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt, and of course One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is funny because his inspiration for the voice of Chucky is based off of Jack Nicholson in that movie.
Yep.
Which is so iconic in itself, right? Because knowing that you can hear the Jack Nicholson impression.
Yep.
But another fun fact is actually he was not the original choice for Chucky.
Who was?
A woman named Jessica Walter. And if that sounds familiar, it's because she plays Archer's mom in Archer.
Oh, okay.
So he actually, a good portion of Chucky's dialogue had been recorded by her. And they didn't think the voice was very sinister because it's a woman's voice. So they replaced her, and he had to actually read over her lines.
Oh, okay.
So if there's places in the movie where the continuity seems a little off with the mouth, that's why, because he had to kind of go re-record something. Whereas in all of the sequels that have followed, he did the voice acting first, and then they built the character, the animatronic around what was already recorded. That's why it's trying to get better over time.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough about this movie. I mean, it's one of my favorites. It's not my favorite of the franchise, but it's like you got to start from ground zero, right?
And at the end, are we planning to like rank all the movies?
I believe at the end we're definitely going to rank
our favorite, like our least favorite up to this one.
Yes, I like I said, Child's Play is just, it brings back such good memories for me.
Yeah.
Chucky was one of the things I was never afraid of, because Chucky just always seemed like I could beat his ass.
Nope, not me. I was afraid.
It's a doll.
I was afraid. And I mean, this was something, so like when I remember my little cousin got a little bit older, and I didn't, because I was already scary, but my other cousins used to like lock him in the room and be like, Charles Lee Ray is coming. And I never, just traumatizing, right? You know, older cousins, older siblings, all them.
That's what they do.
That's what they do. And at the time, I just knew of Chucky. I didn't know of Charles Lee Ray. So I was even scared of Charles Lee Ray. And I didn't even really because I don't really remember my earliest memories of actually watching the movie Child's Play didn't come to like Child's Play 3. Like I'm late. I'm very late in the game. And I think that's why Child's Play 3 is probably going to be my favorite in the whole franchise, because that was my first introduction to it. So,
and it's so funny that's everybody's like first introduction is 3.
Yeah.
And mine was 2.
Okay.
because I've literally been watching horror movies. Probably, I think the first horror movie I remember when I was like 3 years old was Maniac Cop 2.
Okay.
So I've been watching them for such a long time because I had my brothers were so much older than me.
Yeah.
They didn't give a shit. So like we were watching all of that stuff, but like
right.
You know how much I hate 3.
I know. It's and this is the great part about our different memories of it. You know, we have our different memories of it. That first introduction to it was great. It was definitely great.
But I also want to give a shout out to another very famous special effects person that worked on this movie is Howard Berger, and we know Howard Berger from being with what is it GMB or B&G special effects with Greg Nicotero, The Walking Dead, Emmy award winning special effects artist. So he also worked on some Nightmare on Elm Street stuff too.
Yeah.
Just a legend in the game. So I also wanted to mention that he was also working with Kevin Yeager, but I don't know. Part 3 is just, it's my least favorite. It just is just from the casting to how they do Chucky to the one-liners to that little boy.
That little boy got off.
I've been wanting to kick his ass since I was a kid. Like that kid. You know what he reminds me of? I know you watch South Park.
Yeah.
He reminds me of Kyle's cousin.
Oh yeah.
just the most whiniest, just nasaliest. Like if you just don't go sit your ass down somewhere. Like I like probably one of the few children in horror movies where I'm just like, just take him out.
That would have been a whole different movie though if Chucky would have actually taken that little boy's black body, because it's like,
well, he says it like, oh, Chucky's gonna be a bro, which is one of the worst lines in Child's Play history.
Oh my god,
Chucky's gonna be a bro.
He gonna be a bro. You know what he really wanted to say though, right? You know what he really wanted to say though, right?
It's Dr. Umar face, whoever wrote that line.
They was getting away with just the bro, a brother. They wasn't gonna go to a brother. They wasn't gonna do all that. But yeah, I would have loved to see it Chucky as a bro. I would have loved to see it. I'm one of the few people that's like, yep, that would have been me.
There is not a character in that movie that I like. I don't even like Chucky in this movie. That's what I really don't like it. I do not like Chucky in part 3. I don't like the way he looks. I don't like the lines he's given. Like, I don't like that movie as a whole. The scenery.
I love all of it. From beginning to when the blood is like dropping in there and it's going around. Like
that is the only part of the movie. Part 3 that's good is the opening sequence. I hate the beginning. I hate the middle. I hate the end.
I love it. And well, you know what, girl? On that one, I'll take over.
Yes, doing you can have that. I'll just be reacting. But I'm going to tell you right now, that is not the only time in this franchise that Chucky was almost black. And I'll let you guess which other movie that he was almost black.
Oh yeah, See the Chucky. See the Chucky. That would have been great too. See the Chucky is so. Oh my gosh.
Why we didn't just get? I would have loved to have seen Redman act like Chucky for like 5 minutes.
I know, man. Oh man,
that casting still blows my mind to this day. I still don't understand it.
I don't understand it at all.
But I'm here for it because I fucking love Redman's Dirty Timberlands. I don't care.
Yep.
I don't care. But yeah, I mean, the first 3 are just so serious, and then the rest of them are so meta because Bride is during Scream, so everyone was doing meta.
Yeah.
Right. It came out during that same loophole of everyone doing the wink, nudge, nudge horror movie.
Yep.
But the first 3 are just
they're solid. The first 3 is a good trilogy. Even though 3 has its issues, it's still a good trilogy in continuity. It still has some inconsistencies, but they do a good job. This is the one freaking franchise where they don't try too hard and they don't do that prequel. Because I feel like with them in this movie, when they introduced us to the voodoo guy, that could have been that whole like them meeting could have been a whole prequel. But I'm so glad they didn't try too hard.
Well, it's crazy because to this day, Don Mancini hates the voodoo angle. He hated it then, and he still doesn't like it now. But it's been what's established, so he has to roll with it. But he was not down for the whole voodoo aspect because he, in his words, didn't want to talk about something he knew nothing about,
which is fair.
Which is fair. So, but I find it interesting because we were just talking about this last week, how we don't have enough like voodoo and horror. And the most notable one is about a little white boy and his doll.
Yep. It really was.
But I don't know. Like I said, I could go on and on about how great this movie is, and then we can get into other franchises. But I'm excited because then we get into my favorite of the trilogy, which is next week, because part two is the example of a sequel being better than the original. I don't care. You can add me better than part one.
The poster for it. The poster.
The advert for it. With him in the Jack in the Box. Like, I love the Hello Jack, Chucky's back with him crushing the Jack in the Box. Like, I love that movie so much, and the character development, and we are going to get into that next week. So do you have any closing thoughts before we go?
No closing thoughts. I did have a few notes. Okay. The director for Child's Play, Tim Holland, he also worked on, like you said, Fright Night, and he did another movie, he did 2 Stephen King works that I was like terrified of. So
the Langoliers, I was shocked.
Langoliers. Ooh, when I looked this up, I said I need to go find the Langoliers, and I want to get scared again tonight and watch that movie.
That movie is so bad.
It is. I remember when it came on TV in 2-part series on ABC, my dad was like, yes, we have to watch this. And we watched it, and I was terrified. So he did The Langoliers, and he also did Thinner.
Yes. Now Thinner
was another movie. Whew.
Now Thinner, that and Misery are my 2 favorite Stephen King movies ever.
Yeah. Thinner is just so good.
There's a couple of movies on my list that I know we're going to cover, and it's Thinner.
Yeah.
For sure. And Milo, because I feel like nobody ever talks about Milo.
Yeah.
But yeah, Thinner Thinner will fuck you up.
Absolutely. And that's why I was like, hey, this guy's good. Just from his work alone, he's done a ton of other in the scene.
Fright Night's so good. Like, I just got Chucky to watch I just got Courtney to watch Fright Night for the first time like a month or 2 ago. She had never seen it, and that movie is still good.
Yeah, it still holds up.
Like, even though I don't like Chris Sarandon as Detective Mike, like he's such an asshole. I loved him in Fright Night, and I'm glad they chose him because he had already worked with Tom Holland, so he already had that.
Makes a difference. That makes a difference when people are used to working with a certain director, because the director directs all this shit. So if he's working with people who are going to listen to him and all that and trust him, it just makes for a way better.
But you know what? It's really sad when you think about the fact that he didn't come back for the sequel because he was so hard to work with as a director. Because he did create magic with that first movie. I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due. He did a great job.
Oh yeah,
easiest to work with, but he did a great job. But a lot of people say that about Tom Holland. He's not easy to work with. So
I was surprised to find out that this movie. I looked, I'm always looking up like ratings and everything, and this film currently has a 6.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb. But I feel like that's still good. Like, if it's 5, and above, it still holds its weight as being a movie. But I was like, dang, like this is a pretty.
But I feel like that's based on the composite of all the. If you didn't have the other movies, it would be higher.
Yeah, I'm gonna be keeping my eye. Like every movie we do, I'm gonna mention, the rating on IMDb is this, because I like to compare ratings over time over a whole franchise. Like, where did they start to? Because you can tell when they start to go wrong and start to go off the rails a little bit, because ratings kind of suffer, and then critics they go in. Critics be going in. And also, I did want to mention just a little segue. This movie franchise in particular, they caught a lot of flack from a controversy, I would say, because at the time in the early 90s, there was like a kid who killed someone, and they were trying to say like child violence. This movie promotes child violence. It's going to make kids more violent. And then there was like 2 stories of like kids who killed their parents or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was really good that it was either Don Mancini or it was Tom Holland. They were like, hey, I stand beside my side of my work, because if the only way someone is going to be like pushed to do, influenced to do that kind of act, they were already messed up to begin with.
Oh, absolutely.
I like that didn't deter this franchise in a way where it's like, okay, we're gonna boycott. Because I think there was like people boycotting, at the theater, all that stuff.
They always do. They did that with Silent Night, Deadly Night. They do it with all of these things. They did it with GTA. Like, it's always gonna be, like that. I always think about the mom from The Simpsons, like, oh, let's somebody think of the children, and it's like never about the children.
It's never about the children, ever. So yeah, I just thought that was I thought that was pretty. Yeah, pretty eye catching.
But can we, before we go, like, we have to talk about the fact that Chucky single-handedly destroyed My Buddy.
Yeah,
destroyed the company.
Yep.
The company went out of business because
it
was so similar.
Yep. Which, hey, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. That's how,
like, they didn't talk. That was the only difference. Chucky talks.
Yeah.
The guys talk. My Buddies didn't. They were just more plush and cuddly. But the fact that it was so close, they really shut the company down because children were like, mm-mm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, and the parents were like, no, we're not buying these for our kids. Mm-hmm. That is like Child's Play destroyed My Buddy the way 50 Cent destroyed Ja Rule's career. Like, it was that serious.
Absolutely.
There's no coming back for it. But before we get out of here, I do want to segue, and I'm going to try and leave a piece of trivia about the next movie leading in. So, a fun piece of trivia for part 2. We know that Andy's mom didn't come back for part 2, mm-hmm. right? Catherine Hicks decided to part ways. She didn't want to be typecast. Now, that is the story, right?
Yeah.
But aha, young corn fritter, there's more to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, in the original Child's Play 2 script, there is a scene in the beginning that shows Andy's mom, Detective Mike, testifying in court before they took her away.
Oh.
So because she didn't want to continue further with production, they had to cut that scene.
Damn. Oh, man.
Which is interesting because we got a similar scene like that in Curse of Chucky with Nika at the end. Yeah. So it always has a way of coming back around, just like the whole idea in the original movie of the blood pact came back around in part 3.
Yeah.
How part 3 had the idea of the cult, and it finally came to fruition in Cult. Yeah. I love that Don Mancini just is like, all right, I'm gonna put a pin in this and we'll spin the block.
Yeah, we'll circle back. And when he circles the block, mm-hmm. it creates a great storyline. Like, this man makes magic. So
I just wonder what that would have added to part 2.
Yeah, what that could have been.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, you guys, we're going to get on out of here.
We are under 2 hours. This is great.
I know, we made it.
This is great. Hey.
This definitely lifted my spirits today. So I'm excited about part 2 because, that's my favorite. I love me some Kyle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
She is just an angsty teenager, and I love every minute of her. I love Andy. In part 2, and we love Chucky in part 2. So we are definitely going to see you guys next Monday.
All right.
I am at the point, just to mull over, that I just want to do it big. And when I want to do it big, I usually go overboard. So maybe we just do different looks for each movie. Okay. I don't know. Like, I tried today with my good guys. I'm thinking we're just going to keep going. So maybe Tiffany will show up in one of these.
Okay.
Right? Maybe Scarred Chucky shows up in one of these. Maybe Nika shows up in one. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
So I think it's going to be a good time. I'm glad you guys are here with us. Thank you to our new subscribers on our YouTube and on our Facebook followers. We We appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. We're growing every week.
Yep.
And we know that's because of you and sharing our things and liking our things. And
yep.
But we want more engagement. Leave us some comments. We do want to talk to you guys and know about what more you want to see. Or if you have your own trivia to add, we love hearing that too.
Absolutely. Yep.
So leave us a comment, like, follow, share, subscribe, all of those buzzwords that you hear all the social media people use. Right. Oh, and also do not forget to follow us on our TikTok page. Thank you, May.
We got TikTok, y'all. We got TikTok. You'll see some snippets on there. Maybe we could, I don't know. I'm still new. I'm still trying to figure out the whole TikTok live shit, even though it's so much that be going on TikTok live. So I was like, hey, maybe we could try that. And then eventually one day we'll try to figure out how to go live on TikTok, or we can have a watch party on TikTok. We got to get some followers up.
Yes, I know you have to have 1,000 followers on TikTok to go live. So
yeah. So,
we are really trying to hit the ground running before the end of the year, you guys, and grow this whole community.
Yep.
Okay, because I'm telling you, I'm a visionary. I be having dreams, girl. I had a dream. Don't let me get on Martin Luther King shit. I had a dream a week ago.
Yeah.
Where we were hosting a horror con.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm with it.
And we got Billy and Stu
on
a panel, and we got to interview them. And we shot this whole little weird scream segment.
Oh man, that's
I be dreaming so big. Like my imagination is so vivid.
That would be a dream come. That would be awesome.
But we hosted our own like little horror con.
Yeah. Whew. That's something we could try to figure out. We could try to figure that out.
Would be amazing.
Small start, but get all our horror babes in the local area.
Look, I'm speaking into existence. We are going to secure an office space one day. We're gonna have the camera set up. We're gonna have a legitimate podcast with stuff in the background.
The headphones, the microphones, we're gonna have official shit.
Yep. And we are gonna be doing it big. I see it.
Yep.
I see it.
It definitely is gonna happen.
And it's because of y'all.
Yep. So yeah.
All 100 and some of y'all.
Share it. That little 100. Because if them 100 people tell 2 friends, then that's how you grow and grow and grow.
Right. You gotta tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Yep. And we're just gonna keep spamming y'all. So y'all might as well just go ahead and like us, little stink, because we ain't going nowhere. We love you.
Right. So we will see y'all July 31st with Play 2.
Yes. Bye.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Bye, y'all.